The summer of 2010 was supposed to be unforgettable for all the right reasons. My family and I had meticulously planned a road trip to Grand Canyon, brimming with excitement over what we imagined to be a carefree adventure. But some roads, it seems, are better left unexplored. It sparred innocently the snacks box, and my sister Lily's off-key singing that made my dad groan and my mom chuckle. Our trusty old minivan box, Bessie, hummed along the highway as the golden glow of the sunset enveloped the Arizona desert. But as night fell, a creeping unease settled over me. The road had grown eerily quiet. No passing cars, no glowing neon signs of civilization. Just an endless stretch of asphalt and an ominous stillness that pressed against the windows. Almost there. Dad muttered, his knuckles white as he gripped the wheel. But his tone betrayed him. He didn't sound so sure. Then burst from the shows like a specter. Its wide, unblinking eyes locked on ours. Dad swerved hard, and the world dissolved into chaos. Screeching tires, the shattering crunch of metal against the guardrail. When the van finally came to rest, the silence was deafening. I stumbled out, my legs trembling, the cool night air biting my skin. Bessie's headlights flickered, casting grotesque shadows across the twisted wreckage. My mom was slumped unconscious. Lily's terrified sob silence broke the silence with the sighs and mumbling. It's my fault, my fault. As I stood there, trying to steady my breathing, I noticed something odd. The road behind us, should have been, there was only endless desert, and ahead. The highway stretched on, but now the guardrails twisted unnaturally, curling inward like skill of fingers. "Help is coming," whispered more to myself than anyone else. But deep down I knew no help would find us here. Suddenly the headlights dimmed, sputtering like a diehard bee. In that flickering light, figures began to emerge from the darkness. They didn't walk. They floated, their shapes distorted and incomplete like memories Harford. Faces blank, eyes hollowed. They surrounded us in a slow, deliberate circle. "Dad," I gasped, but he didn't respond. He stared past me, his face ashen. One of the figures came closer. Its movements were jerky as if it struggled against invisible strings. And then I saw it, tattered and dangling from its skeletal hand. Road 66, it read, but the numbers dripped like fresh ink, morphing into something indecipherable. "Turn off the lights." A voice soft yet insistent. It wasn't Lily, it wasn't Mom. It wasn't anyone I knew. Panicked, I lunged back into the van and fumbled for the keys. My hands shook as I killed the engine, plunging us into darkness. The figures stopped moving, their hollow gazes fixed on us. For what felt like an eternity, nothing happened. The air was suffocating, footed of 1,000 unspoken horrors. Then, just as abruptly as they appeared, the figures dissolved, fading into night like smoke caught in the wind. When the first light and dawn pieced the horizon, the road was back. Smooth, unbroken and empty. A mirage, a hallucination, no. The claw marks etched into Bessie's doors told a different story. We never made it to the Grand Canyon. We didn't speak of that night again. Not even as we unloaded the van back home. But sometimes late at night, I hear it. The faint hum of tires on asphalt, the flicker headlights in the corner of my eye. And I know the highway hasn't forgotten us. Next time you take the open road, remember, not all who wander are lost, some are waiting. The night I decided to drive back home was supposed to be uneventful, a simple journey to reconnect with my roots. But as dusk melted into darkness, the familiar highway stretched before me. It became clear this would be no ordinary drive. The first signs were subtle. A lone street lamp flickering out as I passed under it. The unsettling quiet when my favorite playlist began to skip and distort. I brushed it off as a technical glitch. After all, it was just a highway, right? About an hour in. The road ahead seemed to ripple unnaturally like heat waves over asphalt. My headlights caught something strange, a sign, weathered old, its paint-peeling way. It read, "Welcome to Ash Hollow, population." The question marks glinted ominously under my beams. Strange, but maybe a prank. I hadn't seen any tov yet. Here was this sign. I told myself to keep going, but then I saw it. A car off to the side of the road, its hazard lights blinking weakly like a dyed harpy. I instant screamed to stop, but something about the car was wrong. Its windshield was shattered inward as if something had crawled out of it. The driver's door lay in one I couldn't feel. I slowed down, scanning the shadows. The night pressed heavy against my windows, and my stomach churned with unease. I whispered aloud, "Just keep driving. Mind your business." But then came the sound, a low, guttural scraping noise like nails dragging across metal. It seemed to come everywhere nor at once. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. My foot hovered over the gas pedal, but curiosity tethered me in place. That's when a shape lurched into my headlights. It was hunched and grotesque, its limbs contorted as though it had been forced into its form against its will. Its face, or whereas obscured by a hood, black and endless, like staring into a void, turned its head toward me. Slowly, deliberately, I hit the gas. The tires screeched as I sped past the figure, my knuckles steering wheel. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, drowning out the distorted echoes of my playlist, which now seemed to be playing in reverse. I glanced in my rearview mirror, expecting to see it standing there. But the road behind me was empty, or so I thought. Suddenly, my car jolted as though something heavy had landed on the roof. A metallic thud reverberated through whited, I struggling to keep control, My breath caught his claw, like fingers began to slide down the windshield, leaving trails of frost in their wake. "No," I whispered, "this can't be happening." A low, distorted chuckle filled the car, coming from nowhere and everywhere. The figure leaned forward, its hood brushing the glass, and I finally saw what lay beneath an empty void. Endless and consuming. Desperation kicked in. I slammed on the brakes, sending the creature flying forward into the darkness. Without a second doubt, I floored it. The car groaning as I pushed it to its limits. The road twisted and turned unnaturally, unfamiliar even though I'd driven it countless times. As I go in circles, I could feel the weight of unseen eyes watching me, their gaze pressing down like a physical force. The air inside the car grew through the windshield. Just as I felt I couldn't take it anymore, the road ended. Literally, my car skidded to a stop inches from a sheer drop. The abyssal drop, gasping for air. My legs trembling. Behind me, the highway was gone, replaced by an endless expanse of forest. And there, in the distance, glowing faint through the trees, was the car I'd seen earlier. The same shattered windshield, the same swinging door. Only this time, the hazard lights blinked in piercing rhythm. I stood frozen as a voice, low and mocking, whispered from the darkness, "You can't leave, you're part of the hollow now." And then, laughter. Yet all around me. When I finally woke up, drenched in sweat, I was parked back on the highway, my car engine humming softly as if nothing had happened. The clock on my dashboard at 3 a.m. The drive home in silence, my hands trembling on the wheel. To this day, I don't know if it was real or a nightmare. But every time I drive that stretch of the sign, "Welcome to Ash Hollow. Populations." And I pray it's not counting me. Did you find these stories eerie and spine-chilling? If so, drop your thoughts in the comments below. But I'd love to hear what you just These are only the first 2 stories. The next 3, they're even more terrifying and twisted than anything you've heard before. You won't believe what happens next. So, make sure to hit that subscribe button to get more of these spine-tingling videos. Now, grab your cup of tea, fasten your seatbelt, and snuggle under a blanket to keep the chills at bay, because the real horror is just getting started. Keep watching. It turned its head toward me, slowly. It was the summer of 2010, a trip that should have been nothing but laughter memories and photos to cherish forever. Instead, it became a chapter in my life I can't escape. A story I tell only when the lights are on, and even then, the room feels colder. We had planned for months. My dad, meticulous as always, charted our route to the Grand Canyon, marking all the quirky roadside stops he thought we'd love. Mom packed the cooler with snacks and drinks. My little sister Lily, he and I argued over playlists, and then there was Bessie, our old, faithful minivan, ready to carry us into the adventure of a lifetime. The first few days were pure joy. Giant yarn balls, weird diners with even weirder waiters, sunsets so golden they looked like dreams. But then, somewhere near a no-name town in Arizona, the air shifted. It wasn't just the setting sun painting the horizon blood, red, or the creeping shadows stretching across the highway. It was the silence, the kind that feels alive, pressing against your chest, making the air feel thick. Dad, determined as ever, insisted we push on. "We'll make it to the hotel," he said, his voice tight. "It's just a little further." The road stretched endlessly dark and desolate. The only company was the rhythmic hum of the tires, and even that started to feel like a sinister chant. Then came the deer. It bolted from the shadows, its eyes glinting in our headlights, and Dad swerved hard. I'll never forget the sound. The screech of tires, the metallic shriek as Bessie slammed into the guardrail, the crunch of glass in the hollow of the world turning upside down. When the spinning stopped, silence returned. But this time, it was deafening. I crawled out of the wreckage, my heart pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. The highway was empty, not a single car in sight. The headlights flickered weakly, casting jagged shadows onto the twisted metal. "Help will come," I whispered to myself, but the words felt hollow. That's when I saw it, faint at first, but unmistakable. A figure. No, he can be a chatterbox, not a figures. They stood just beyond the reach of the headlights, shapes that didn't seem fully formed, like they were fighting to exist. Their eyes glowed faintly, watching, waiting. My dad stumbled out of the car, clutching his arm. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice shaking. But before I could answer, the radio and Bessie crackled to life. Despite the fact the engine was dead, A voice spilled out, static and distorted, but unmistakably male. It whispered, "You shouldn't have come here." My dad froze. "Who's there?" he shouted, but the voice didn't respond. Instead, the shadows moved closer, their forms flickering as they formed between worlds. Lily screamed from the back seat. She pointed out the window, her face pale, tears streaming down her cheeks. "They're coming," she coming. For a moment, my breath caught in my throat. The road behind us was gone, swallowed by a swirling void of blackness. The highway was no longer a road, a trap, a place that had been waiting for us. We scrambled to get my unconscious mom out of the car. Every movement felt slow, like we were waiting for molasses. The figures circled, their whispers louder, almost mocking. Finally, with one last effort, we managed to drag her to the shoulder. But as we did, I saw Bessie's headlights dim and flicker out completely. The radio gave one last burst of static before falling silent. And then, the laughter began. It wasn't human, it was deep. It was demon-filled, it was deep kind of glee. The shadows surged forward, and I swear for a moment I saw faces. Twisted, grotesque faces grinning with malicious delight. We ran. My dad carried my mom. I held Lily's hand so tightly I thought it might break. The darkness seemed to follow us, creeping closer with every step. And then just when I saw us whole, there was light, blinding pure light. A semi-truck came barreling down the highway, its horn blasting. The shadows recoiled, screaming in a wail before vanishing completely. The truck stopped, and the driver, a grizzled old man, jumped out, his face a mix of confusion and concern. He helped us into his K. I looked back. The hideaway was empty. Bessie was gone. To this day, I don't know what happened that night. No one does. But every time I hear a whisper in the wind or catch a shadow out of the corner of my eye, I wonder, was it them? Are they still watching? If you ever find yourself on a desolate highway at night, remember this: some roads aren't meant to be traveled. And if the shadows start, don't stop. Don't look back. Just run. If you made it this far, consider hitting that subscribe button for more stories that'll keep you up at night. And tell me, what's the scariest thing you've ever seen on a road trip? Let me know in the comments below. If you can be driven down a lonely highway in the middle of nowhere, late at night, with nothing but the dim headlights illuminating the dark road ahead, you feel like you're the only one left in the world, the silence pressing in on you. That's how it all began for me, and how it ended, well, it still haunts me to this day. It was supposed to be just another night on tour. We were high off the energy from the show. Band members laughing, the crew joking around, and me, of course, trying to keep it all together. You see, managing a band on the road isn't easy. It's a whirlwind, the excitement, the adrenaline, the hustle. But sometimes you never expect, the things you don't want to expect, catch up with you in the most twisted of ways. After the show, a small town out in the Midwest, we were starving. We found this old diner at the end of the street. The kind of a place that only comes alive after dark. The smell of greasy food hung in the air, the noon sign flickering above. The laughter was loud, clattering plates, the sound of ice in glasses. We were still buzzing from the stage, recounting the best moments of the night, just happy to be there. You know, the kind of feeling where nothing can go wrong. And then we stepped outside. Heek and Winda picked up treats were quiet. Too quiet. That's when I saw them. A group of people in shadows huddled near the alley. They can look like they didn't belong, like they were waiting for someone. My gut twisted. Something felt off. But, like any fool, I didn't say anything. The band was still chatting. They didn't notice, but I did. I tried to urge them to hurry up, to stick close. But at that moment, the night felt too normal, too ordinary. It wasn't until we reached the van that the true horror began. Before we could even get in, they were on us. Fast, too fast. The group sprang from the shadows like they had been waiting for us. One of them, the biggest one, had a knife. He waved it in front of my face, his eyes wild. "Give us your stuff!" He barked, and I froze. Frozen in place. My heart pounding like I could feel it in my throat. Everything went silent except for the sound of my breath. The band, startled, took a step back. They were confused and scared. The adrenaline hit me like a punch to the gut. "Don't fight them," I told them, trying to keep my voice calm, but inside I was screaming. "Just give them what they want. It's not worth getting hurt." Wallets, phones, whatever we had, they took it all. And then, like some bad joke, they laughed. The robbers laughed, while they emptied our pockets, rifling through our things as if they weren't human. When they vanished into the alley, I stood there in shock, my mind racing. What just happened? What if it had been worse? What if someone had gotten hurt? We stood there, staring to the dark void of the alley, the shadows swallowing them up, leaving us with nothing but the heavy weight of fear. Heek and the drive back to the hotel was silent. Too, the excitement of the tour had been wiped away, replaced by a sense of dread. We should have been celebrating, but we weren't. The room was tense. Gatteris fidgeting, one of them still shaking, his voice cracking as he said, "We're supposed to be having fun, not this." We all felt it. The violation. The fear. The unis, I had always prided myself on protecting the band, keeping them safe. But I failed. I couldn't stop what happened, and I felt every second of that failure gnawing at me. We spent the next few days trying to figure out what came next. The robbers might have taken our things, but they also took something new from us, the naive trust we had in the world. We talked. We shared our fears, and that bond we thought was strong, our brotherhood, grew even stronger. But it wasn't the same. It wasn't just about the music anymore. It was about trust, survival. Learning that the road was never just about the highs. The lows came when you least expected them, and they left their marks. We never let our guard down again. No more lone walks at night. The buddy system became our rule. We invested in better security for everything. Our lives. We were smarter, more, and above all, we learned to stick together. But it didn't stop there. No, the lesson we learned that night, under the flickering neon lights of that diner, was that the road, no matter how thrilling, was always one step away from danger. And the worst part, sometimes that danger doesn't look like danger at all. It just lurks. To this day, when I drive down a quiet highway late at night, I feel the hairs on the back of my neck rise. The shadows seem deeper, the silence more threatening, and I wonder, are the shadows still watching us? The last tour ended, but the terror never truly left. Some things stay with you no matter how far you go. And sometimes it's the dark highways that hold the most dangerous memories. Will you be ready if you ever find yourself on the road when the shadows start to move? It was a cold Friday night, and I was driving home after a grueling week at work. The kind of week that drags on, making you feel like you've been running in place. I had planned to get home early, but a last-minute meeting pushed that back. It was well past midnight now, and the road spread out before me like a never-ending snake through the darkness. The usual route, the one I had driven countless times before, twisted through thick woods and small, forgotten towns seemed to vanish as quickly as they appeared. I turned up the music, trying to drown out the creeping unease that was tightening my chest. The headlights of my car illuminated the asphalt. He can be a chatterbox, but the shadows cast by the trees on either side of the road felt too close, too alive. It wasn't just the silence of the night that made it eerie, but the way the darkness felt like it was pressing in, suffocating the life of everything. As I drove, I noticed something strange, a flickering light in my rearview mirror. At first, I thought it was just another car, but as it grew closer, I realized it wasn't. It was a motorcycle, the kind of bike that sounded like it was trying to outrun the very wind. Rider was all over the place, weaving in and out of traffic as though he couldn't keep still. My stomach tightened. I had heard the stories, the rumors about reckless drivers on this stretch of road, but this was different. There was something unsettling about the way the bike moved. I decided to speed up, hoping to lose him in this, but it only made things worse. The bike kept pace, closing the gap between us. I glanced in my rearview mirror again. The rider was so close now I could make the outline of a helmet, the way his body leaned forward as though urging the bike to faster. Panic clawed at me. I was alone on this godforsaken highway. What if this was the night I found myself on the wrong end of a chase? The old advice from my dad in my head. If you ever feel threatened, don't dratter. Don't drive home, find a public place. Get somewhere safe. I glanced at the GPS. There was a gas station a few miles ahead. I could make it there, just a little farther. I increased my speed, my heart hammering in my chest. I took the exit ramp, and I could see the gas station's lights glowing in the distance. Hope flared briefly. But then, the motorcycle followed. My hands gripped the wheel tighter as I pulled into the lot. I parked my car close to the entrance, eyes darting nervously to the other cars. The few scattered people filling up. The motorcycle screeched to a halt a few spaces away from me. The rider dismounted and I froze. My mind raced, my pulse pounding in my ears. He can walk toward my car, and my heart threatened to explode from my chest. I quickly locked the doors and rolled down the window just enough to hear him. "Hey, you okay?" His voice was calm, almost friendly, but something was unsettling in his tone, like he wasn't fully present. I hesitated of how to respond. "Yeah, I'm fine," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. "Just a little freaked out." He nodded as if everything made sense to him. "I saw you back there and thought you might need help. Didn't mean to scare you." Relief rushed through me, but caution kept my guard up. "I appreciate it, but I'm good now. Just need to get to a safe place." He seemed to relax, nodding again. There was an awkward silence before he turned back to his motorcycle. He revved the engine. The noise rattled my bones. As the motorcycle sped away, I couldn't help but watch, my heart still for racing. He took a deep breath and got out of the car to fuel up. Inside the gas station, the fluorescent lights flickered overhead. I grabbed a snack, my mind spinning. What had just happened? What if I hadn't taken the exit box? What if I hadn't come to the gas station? I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been off about that whole encounter. It wasn't just the motorcycle, it was the way he had acted like he was playing some twisted game. A game I almost didn't survive. As I drove the rest of the way home, I couldn't help but a chilling awareness gnawing at my mind. The darkness had felt so familiar before, so comforting. But now, it was something else entirely. It had become a living, breathing thing, creeping behind me with every turn of the wheel. When I finally pulled into my driveway, I let out a shaky breath. I was home, safe. But something in me had changed that night. The world felt darker now, the night more dangerous. I had learned, in the hardest way possible, to trust my instincts. Always be aware, because sometimes, the highway is more than just a road. It's a place where shadows come to life, and there's no telling who or what might be following you. So remember this, if you're ever driving alone on a dark, desolate road and you get the feeling you're not alone, trust that feeling. It could save your life. If you found value in the stories and insights shared in this video, we invite you to subscribe to our channel for more content. By subscribing, you'll stay updated on our latest videos, which can be inspire, educate, and provoke thought. We strive to create a space where we can share experiences and learn from one another, and your support helps us continue that mission.